What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're doing the review of the Velites Hybrid 1.0. Alright, so we are hot off of the 2025 CrossFit Games, and you probably saw the name Velites being thrown around, and that's because they were the apparel and footwear sponsor for this year's games. If you're from North America and you were pretty unfamiliar with the name, that's understandable. It's because they are a Spanish company. They've been making grips, jump ropes, CrossFit accessories for a long time now, but the Hybrid 1.0 is their first trainer that is designed for functional fitness. This shoe came out, I think, maybe about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. They did a crowdfunding project to get this thing going, and when they first released, I got a pair of them, which is this teal pair here. The problem about this teal pair, and why I never did a review back in the day, was because these things are very big. Like, they were almost like a full size too big for me. So I never really wanted to wear them that often. I kind of sucked it up a little bit here and there, but I didn't think it was fair for me to give a review on a shoe that just didn't fit me very well at all. So fast forward, I don't know, until like the middle of last year, they sent me another pair, which is this white and gum colorway, which is technically the same size. They're both size 44s, which is a men's size 10, except this one just fits a lot better. So I've been using this one, but obviously I haven't done a review because things just got busy and I just kind of got caught up. But here we are. I think a lot of people want to know about this shoe right now. So let's get into it and talk about it. First things first, we're gonna go over the construction of it. So we have a 100% recycled polyester upper. It's a single piece upper, and then it's got overlays on top of that. The mesh is kind of like this smooth, shiny mesh on the outside layer, and then it's like a softer, more perforated layer on the inside. Something that you can kind of see through, similar to the mesh that they use on the CX2 Elite carbons. Now, that overlay is reinforced with TPU over the lateral side and the toe box. As you can kind of see, the overlay is a little bit yellowed on mine, and that I don't think is just from dirt. I think it's just like oxidation on the shoe. And then around the heel, there's another overlay with the Velites logo and then Hybrid 1.0 on the other side. And if you couldn't already tell, the design of this shoe somewhat minimal. So if you didn't like branding all over your shoes, you might be gravitating towards this shoe. Now, taking a look at the lacing system on the shoe, it's not really anything special, but it works just fine. You've got an overlay that acts as the eye stay, and then there are some reinforced bits at the bottom of the eye stay and at the top. There's the option to lace lock if you ran into issues with heel slip, which wasn't really an issue for me. And then the tongue is a ventilated kind of cushion tongue. It's not super thick, it's not too bulky. I think it's just right. The shoes are gusseted with elastic bands on the side. The ankle collar on the shoe is more on the minimal side, though there is some cushioning in there. It's a very dense foam that they're using, and it's a little bit thicker at the heel part. There's also a little contour at the heel, so you don't run into any heel slip issues. And then we also have a nice little heel pull tab to assist you when putting these shoes on. But I will say that because of that more dense cushioning and just overall heel cup construction, the heel is very rigid on the shoe, and it can make putting the shoe on actually kind of difficult. Now, going back to the upper, it feels somewhat thin in the non-reinforced areas, but then when you start to bend the shoe in its entirety is pretty flexible for what it's worth. It just doesn't feel nice when it bends on top of your foot. The midsole that they're using on the shoe is an EVA foam, and there really isn't all that much of it. The shoe has a more minimalist, almost barefoot shoe feel. The stack height, I don't know, but it's fairly low. And if you are somebody that liked a more minimal drop, the shoe would be probably a good choice for you because it has anywhere between a 2 and a 3 millimeter drop. I'm going to assume that that scales depending on the sizing of the shoe. Now, in order to make up for that very minimal midsole, we have a dual layered sock liner. So you have a top viscoelastic layer and then you have a bottom TPE layer. And if there was anything that I disliked about the Hybrid 1.0s, it's the insole. I do not like the way that this top layer feels. It's like a memory foam insole. So if I kind of press it, it will be very slow to depress. And it just does not feel pleasant underfoot, especially when you're training and you're lifting weights. It kind of feels a little bit like gummy in a way. If they just stuck with the TPE layer, I think that the shoe would feel a lot better. So if you haven't already noticed, this shoe has a ton of rubber on it. The outsole is a full rubber outsole. It's got a very flat profile, and that's something that I like about the shoe a lot. There's almost no heel rocker. There's almost no toe spring. There are flex grooves all throughout the forefoot, and then you have this kind of like V treading, which actually is a pretty cool touch. I think that's pretty neat. And you have that V treading at the heel part of the shoe. The mid part of the shoe isn't broken up quite as much because that's where the rope is going to run through. There are slight contours on both the lateral and medial edges to help you slide down the rope. And of course, we have our sidewalls that extend up a decent amount for both foot and lateral containment and rope climb protection. Finally, we have extended rubber on the toe bumper and some more extended rubber at the heel, and it says glide back here, but since it's rubber, I don't think that's gonna glide on most wall surfaces. Now, I will say that using the shoe for rope climbs was actually a pleasant experience. I used my green ones. Let me see if I can pull them up here. So pretty much no wear on the outsole, which is what we love to see. Another thing that I really like about it is that we don't have any real wear on the upper of the shoe, or at least the polyester upper of the shoe. Now, there is some wear on the inner overlay, but that's all just kind of superficial wear. So I would say that these are fairly good rope climbing shoes. The grip is also very good throughout, and I do like that flat contact outsole. The last thing that I think these shoes do fairly well with is the weight of them. I got a men's size 44, which is a size 10, and they clocked in at 13 ounces or 371 grams, which is not heavy. It's not light. It's on the lighter side of training shoes, and if it's on the lighter side of training shoes, then I can appreciate that. All right, so when it comes to sizing your Hybrid 1.0s, I'm gonna recommend that if you're looking to buy these shoes, you should find your best fitting pair of trainers, look at the tag, see what the EU size is, and then go with that. There are no half sizes here, so you only can go with a full size. I got these in a size 44, which is a 9.5 UK and a 10 US. They do fit on the slightly longer side. I have just a touch of extra space at the very front of the toe in this shoe, but nothing that I would say is too long or it doesn't fit very well. My original pair, so if you're gonna buy like the first drop, these ones run big. You're gonna wanna size these ones down if you get one of these colors. But if you get like the black and gum and the white and gum, you should probably be okay going with your EU size, or if you are a half size, you're gonna wanna go down. So Velites say that these shoes have a wide toe box to allow your toes to splay. And I would say that that is somewhat true. I would say that they're probably a little bit wider than average, but I wouldn't say that these are like wide shoes by any stretch of the word. I'd say that they're pretty normal shape. The toe box does have a more anatomical shape to it, and I think it fits very well for me, somebody that has a bunion but not particularly wide feet. The toe box volume might be an issue for some people because it kind of has more of a flat shape to the toe box, but otherwise I didn't have any issues with the overall volume and width, or even these shoes being too wide, which is something that I sometimes have trouble with shoes that have really wide toe boxes. All right, so when it comes to running in these shoes, I initially thought that these were not going to be very good for running. The weight is not great. The flexibility feels a little bit on the clunky side, but once you actually start going, it's not really that much of a problem. I think the issues with the upper kind of go away when you're intensely or somewhat intensely working out. This is not a shoe that I'm gonna recommend for longer runs, but I mean, if you're doing a 200 or 400 in intervals, then I think that these are gonna do just fine. The one thing that I would say that might put people off is the fact that there's really no impact protection or midsole foam to be had. The cushioning is pretty much non-existent on this shoe, so it feels like you are running in almost a barefoot shoe with like maybe a thicker insole. It's not totally uncomfortable because the shoe is decently flexible, but it's worth noting that if you're looking for a shoe that had more cushioning and was easier on your feet, then this is probably not going to be the one for you. The same thing goes for when it comes to like in the box movements. You're looking at burpees, lots of double unders, box jumps. All of those things are comfortable enough, but I wouldn't say that these shoes are the best if you're looking for something that was overall easier on your feet. But on the flip side, since there isn't a lot of foam between your foot and the ground, I thought that lifting in these was actually pretty good. It depended on the lift. I thought that these were better for slow lifts than more dynamic Olympic weightlifting movements, but in a whole, I enjoyed lifting with these shoes. Probably the best part about them is the amount of ground contact that you get and ground feel. There's not a lot of midsole, so they're a pretty tactile pair of shoes when you're doing your Olympic weightlifting movements and barbell cycling. Now, I will say that the drop isn't really doing you any favors because you do have pretty much no heel lift on these shoes. But if you're somebody that has fairly good ankle mobility, then that's probably not going to be an issue for you. One thing that I did notice while doing my Olympic weightlifting movements in this shoe is that they almost always wanted to push me back towards the heel part of the shoe, which is something that you're gonna have to get used to. I don't know if it was just me, but in both of my pairs, I always wanted to lean towards the midfoot and heel part of the shoe. And that would, on the flip side, push my toes up. So sometimes it would throw me off balance. Now, that could be because I typically use slightly higher drop shoes than this, and that's just a product of having a lower, more minimal drop. But where these shoes do the best is when you are doing a slow lift because there is almost nothing to push through. So if you're squatting in these shoes, you have pretty good ankle mobility. I thought power delivery was very good. Also, the grip on these shoes is excellent. Okay, so these shoes retail for $165 now. When they first came out, I think that they were like somewhere around $100 or $110, and they slowly crept up until the price that they are now, which I think had to do with maybe the game sponsorship. But at $165, I'm struggling to find any reasons to recommend this over some of the other top training shoes. I could say that maybe the only reason that you would want to buy this is if you wanted a more barefoot feeling shoe without completely going for a barefoot shoe. You wanted something that had some kind of midsole and you could rope climb in, but other than that, I'm not really seeing where or why you would want these over like the Metcon 10, Strike Haze, CXT2s, or Rad V2s. All of them are pretty different, maybe besides like the Metcon 10 and the Strike Haze, but I think all of those shoes do a better job in training than the Velites 1.0. Now, these aren't horrible shoes by any means. They just don't do anything particularly well, or they aren't very special in any certain way. They do everything just fine, and I will give them that. And they are somewhat durable, pretty good for rope climbs. But at the end of the day, I think that there are just better options out there. And $165 is just way too much to ask for these shoes. Even at $130, I still think that might be a little bit too much to ask because of some of the other shoes that you can get for $130. Namely, Drop Set 3, which I think overall is another much better shoe than this shoe is. And even the Born Primitive Savage 1, which I think has a better feeling midsole than these do. Once again, I want to reiterate that I don't think that these are a bad shoe by any means. I just think that there are better options out there when you're looking to spend your money. But if you like the more minimalist style or you just like the brand Velites, then I would say go for it, but just don't expect them to knock your shoes off. If you guys have any questions about the Velites Hybrid 1.0s, feel free to leave them in the comments section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.